Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Ambient Talkie, a show where we dive into some weird and wacky equipment and wonderful, call it whatever you want, music. I'm Andy from Two Round Robins, and I hope you're ready for a bit of sample triggering. So, since I've recently had a pleasure of performing a few live gigs, I have rocked my brains trying to figure out in what way I can make these performances the closest to that of my vision, plus leave some room for, a bit of improvisation along the way. So if you have watched this In Convo With episode, where I talked about my own interpretation of what a Two Round Robins live performance is, I have also talked about conceptualizing or creating concepts for the performance that is based on the area where the piece is performed and what are and were the initial ideas. So next performance is in London, and due to me and Maggie traveling, I want to travel a bit lighter than usual. So obviously there might be a discrepancy between me having like a little performance vision, a conceptual piece like this grandiose idea or whatever, and using minimal gear. So in that case, this is where this thing comes into play, this particular script here. So today I want to talk a bit about me using Timber Player as my main sample launching station and how this thing integrates with my other gear that's gonna be in the performance. So what is Timber? Well, this is a sample player engine that kind of lives within two main scripts on norns, that being the Timber Player and Timber Keys. Both of these and the engine itself was developed by Markeets. So for my performance, I will use Timber Player, which is pretty awesome for triggering samples with a grid, and these samples being a bit longer than your usual standard, like little samples that you used in different Norn scripts. So before we dive in, I should mention that Timber, which was discussed a bit in my Orca video, is a sample engine running in Super Collider as opposed to, most of the scripts using Softcut as your buffering and sampling capabilities. Now, why is it good to have that thing in Super Collider? Well, I'm no expert, but I think it might have to do with the limitations that Softcut can showcase. With that thing being that running these samples through Super Collider, you can run them longer. You can add a bit of different qualities to them, and I'll go into the nitty-gritty of those in a second, but there is a difference when running through Super Collider and when running through Softcut. It's also, I think, a bit of a difference when it comes to sound quality, but I might be wrong. This is just because a lot of samples and samplers on norns are basically mono-based with 2 buffers and 6 playheads, so they kind of go, they kind of create this Fox stereo, but within Super Collider, these are, 7 voices, true stereo, pretty high quality of playback and all that. Basically what we need when we're talking about using these particular things that are launched from norns. So let's just see where we are here. This is, like I stated, Timber Player, and just by pressing something, we can basically just launch our own samples. And as you can see, this is a little piano loop that I have created, as you can see here. Now, this is pretty cool. And why do I have it so long? Because this is like 23 seconds as opposed to, this could easily be 8 or 10 seconds. But when performing and preparing samples, I really like to have that more humanistic feel to it. So meaning that I would play the same thing 2 times, prolong it, just so it gets like a little more of a livelier field. Now, there's a problem here though, because as soon as these samples become a bit longer, so let's say for example, all of these samples here are pretty long, this one here is pretty short. So, and as you can see in this one, you do have a endpoint and a beginning point, so you can basically zone in on what you want to do. But with these ones here, you only have the start point and no end point. Now this becomes a bit of a problem. Why? Well, because you need to really take care of your own loops when you prepare these things to put them on the device here, so it has that seamless type playback. And that can become a hassle, especially when you try to, when you try to figure out that you have this like humanistic fields with longer samples and, not really a lot to do with timing. You really want these to flow kind of nice. And these are kind of flowing nice. You add a bit of reverb and you're done. However, there's this sample here, which is 40 seconds long, this loop. And now you're gonna see that when this playhead kind of reaches here to this side, it's gonna have a bit of a problem. And I'm gonna leave you to see or hear what that problem might be. You hear that? It's not good. I didn't do a good job. So this basically means that I gotta go back to the DAW, prepare that, and then move it back here and have a better outcome when it comes to looping. However, even though that thing, this thing can be a bit of a hassle, since longer files on Timbre Player are streamed as opposed to played, so there's a different way of how these things are processed, you still do have a bit of a leeway how to basically control. So first things first, you also have like an option for quality. So it can be really lo-fi or it can be high. And I usually leave them on high, just because when preparing samples, I like to run loops through different outboard gear or different other scripts that are on norns. For example, this one here, so you can see that the quality is high, but you hear this rather nice little digital distortion that's kind of here. Now, this is because when creating this particular loop, I just ran piano through Gravel script, which is by Andrew CS. So it kind of creates that. But like moving back to this thing, you can do different things like transposing it as you wish, or detuning it, scaling. And then you also have the launch mode. Now by default, it's usually on gate, meaning that if you press, it's just gonna be as long as you keep it pressed. Now usually I go with toggle, for obvious reason when it comes to launching stuff. However, if I would have different samples that would require a more, press and forget about it type of thing, or not forget about it type of thing, then I would definitely use the gate function here. So yeah, there's a way how you can clearly change a few parameters just on the get-go. And usually how you load these things. So if you would let's say, press just one of the buttons on the grid, you would go load, and then you would just load like a sample here. But the cool thing also is that if you start out just at the beginning and you want to and you have like a folder full of samples and you want everything on it, you just press on the first sample and it's just going to automatically go one after the other. So thinking in that logic, if you have like a naming convention that like goes with 0001, 02, 03, whatever, you can basically map them out even before you start mapping them here. So you have them in a way, just with naming conventions, you have them prepared even within the first initial load up. So that's pretty cool. Now, if we're talking a bit about this thing, like I stated here, you can do the loop thing. You can also create, you can change the volume, and you can change a bit of filtering. And you can have like low pass or high pass as you wish. No band pass as of now. But you know, even though this is pretty amazing for having it as a sort of a way how you would shape sound even before you start launching your samples and stuff like that, it's pretty great if you have like a little controller like I do here with this is Cork's Nano Control, and I'm basically using the faders here to act as my my faders or my levels here, and I'm using the pot or the knob here for some filtering, so for the cutoff. So this basically creates a way how you can quite easily create this way of engaging with the material just by using different controllers. So again, you can add a bit of liveliness to the whole thing, but you can also do the same thing with, let's say, envelopes. So each sample has its own envelope, meaning that this is basically how it's triggered. So remember when I said that timbre kind of lacks fade in and fade out. So what you can do here is basically use the amp option. So meaning that because it's going to start a bit later and it's going to take some time before it reaches the attack point here or the decay point, it's going to create this nice little fade in. And because we have release here, it's going to do the same for the fade out. So this is kind of a workaround when it comes to trying with fade in and fade outs on this particular thing. So that's pretty cool. Okay, next up you also have, so this is modulation envelope. And what I mean by modulation is that you do have like two LFOs, and each of these LFOs you can like change stuff. So you have like you can change which type of the LFO they are. So let's say we have one sine and one square here, and then if you move here to the next page and just go like with frequency, oh, it's not going to do anything. Huh. Let me just see. Have I not done this correctly? Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. So yeah, you can do these funny things here. Of course, one of my favorites is just using square on the amplitude to create that tremolo effect. And of course, you can basically you can, without a doubt, just like hook up MIDI controls through this and use that as your main performance tool. However, you know, me wanting to basically be very simple and just use these kind of longer loops and whatnot, to launch different themes throughout a performance, I'm also going to be using outboard gear like a Eurorack, like a very, very small Eurorack case, and then process violin through that, and maybe like a Coca Quantus and whatnot. So like there's going to be a difference. There's going to be an addition to just your simple sample launching. Although this is still then proven to be quite a big, basically centerpiece of the performance, because all the material that you worked on can be stored here and then launched at different moments to create the story that you want to create through the performance, like I'm trying to do now. So if you want to see the performance, then I really suggest you coming by to London on the 30th. Why? Well, it's because it's gonna be a grand time. I think it's gonna be pretty great. You can see what I'm preparing, and I'm gonna do a bit more sample work, as there's still a few things that we and I can do here. Plus, you're gonna see Maggie perform on the violin with this thing, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, London, South London, Brixton, Spanners Club, 30th. Go there, check us out. But for all the people that will not come because, you know, you have other plans or you don't live in the country, then if you like this type of content, well, then do sub, do give a like if you like this thing, and do give a comment, because it kind of helps out the whole channel. If you want to go an extra mile, you can do the following. You can go to my Patreon and you can give money, but in exchange you can receive pretty cool sample libraries and sample packs each and every month. Plus you get to see the video a bit ahead of the time than most of the folks here on YouTube. So yeah, that's cool. Okay, but most importantly, guys, have a lovely rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you might be watching, and do take care. See you later.